Hello and welcome to Alfons Zeileis. My name is Johanna Nagelsbach. I am the grandniece of Alfons Zeileis. How did children spend their holidays? Did they work? Did they stay at home? Did they travel? Did they travel with or without their parents? Please guess now. You will get the answer in this video. Summer. The sun is shining, the hay smells. Time creeps along. Why are summer vacations so long, anyway? In the German Empire, children generally went to school from the age of 6 to 14. Children from agricultural families either had to work on the farm or were let out to larger farmers by the age of 10 or 11 at the latest. There they were employed to herd cattle and to work in the garden and fields. The main harvest time is in July and August. For children from agricultural families and also for working class families, vacations usually meant hard work in agriculture. From 14 it was then full-time work. When you see the picture with the title The Young Sailor with a boy who could hardly be older than 14, you can hardly believe that this boy should already go to sea and thus work 70 hours and more a week. These were the usual working hours at that time. When I see this, I become grateful for today's Youth Employment Protection Act and today's working hours. Let's look at the numbers. First, the general distribution by economic sector. Shown are the economic sectors agriculture, industry, and trade and transport, as well as their aggregation. Civil servants are unfortunately not included in the chart. Between 1882 and 1907, the number of self-employed in agriculture remained almost constant. The proportion of those self-employed in industry halved from 1882 to 1907, which is interesting and suggests the unverified assumption that many started in small business and consolidated into larger enterprises as business models matured. The situation is similar for retail and transportation. On the subject of vacations, please keep an eye on the industrial and trade and transport sectors of the economy. It is also interesting to note that in the period from 1882 to 1907, the number of employees and workers in agriculture remained almost the same, while it increased sharply in industry and trade and transport, a clear sign of industrialization on the rise. How did the proportion of self-employed civil servants, employees and workers behave in the families of grammar school students? In the book Kurfürst Ruprecht Grammar School Neustadt an der Weinstraße 1578 to 1978, Development of a School, there are statistics on this. This is also interesting because Alfons Zeileis will later be a drawing teacher at this school and his daughter Anneliese will attend this high school. The families of the students of the first grammar school classes had the following occupational status in the years 1881 and 1905. The data are in percentages. In the school year 1881 to 1882, 50% of the students' families were self-employed, 22% were civil servants, 5% were employees, 2% were workers, and 21% were others. In the school year 1905 to 1906, 65% of the students' families were self-employed, 30% were civil servants, 2% were employees, 2% were workers, and only 1% were others. The self-employed and civil servants are clearly overrepresented at the Kurfürst Ruprecht Grammar School. Children of families from agriculture and of workers rarely had higher education. While children of the elementary school could come from all classes, and especially children from agriculture and small farming families spend their vacations working, one can probably assume that children of the upwardly mobile middle class used their vacations for other activities. Visits to relatives who lived in another place were common. Children often went there alone. This was quite common in the family of Elizabeth Zeileis, the wife of Alfons Zeileis. since the family, whose fathers worked mainly in teaching and as pastors, was scattered all over Bavaria and thus had different places to go if they wanted to see something else during their vacation. Little Liesel, for example, drove from Ansbach to Erlenbach to visit her aunt. At that time, many families of all classes kept chickens. The youth militias, which we got to know in the last article, also offered opportunities for tent camps and the like. Otherwise, of course, people also went on vacation with their parents. If you didn't have any ideas of your own, you could get ideas from the magazine Gartenlaube, for example, here from 1898. There are reports about hiking in the Alps, a museum opening in Zurich, a report about a trip in a horse-drawn carriage over Alpine passes, a trip to the sea, a report about Empress Elizabeth of Austria, called Sissy, who stayed in a hotel in Caen near Montreux, or a report about India as an exotic travel destination which at the same time marketed colonialism, which at that time was by far no longer uncontroversial, made you want to travel. It is striking that the pictures in the magazine like to show good-looking women. Married women of the educated middle class were not employed. They took care of their household and, if necessary, if the spouse was self-employed, worked in the business. Women in agriculture or laborers worked as needed, where an opportunity arose, and thus contributed to the upkeep of the family. For these women this was a matter of course. However, they did not go on vacation in the summer, but worked. Scenes from agriculture were gladly depicted in a romanticized way, such as this scene on the subject of the grape harvest. The landscape, with its agricultural features, was depicted as idyllically as possible, in order to attract tourists, even though industry was clearly increasing in these landscapes. We will encounter this theme again later in the Palatinate. Picture postcards also became very popular at the end of the 19th century. They were written on front and back and often collected by the recipients in special albums, which could be purchased. What was Alfons Zeileis doing during his vacations? Alfons' father was a Royal Bavarian Railroad expeditor. That means a civil servant, and his mother was a housewife. Thus, the family belonged to the middle class. Nothing is known about the family's travels. They probably made occasional trips, for example to Hafenlohr, where Alfons Zeileis' story began. In 1907, Alfons Zeileis wrote to his cousin almost enthusiastically about Würzburg. Whether the sun shines through light yellow clouds or disappears behind leaden mists, it is always the dear sun that shines on the hills of our home. In these hills, Alfons Zeileis has definitely been on the road during his vacations and also otherwise abundantly, for example in the Sell forest, in the Gutenberg forest or in Heidingsfeld. He put the results on paper even before he graduated from high school. The lovely area around Würzburg still offers plenty of opportunities for vacation activities. The fortress, the church Kapelle, the vineyards and the banks of the Main. What would have been your destination back then? Thank you for accompanying me on the holidays of the 19th century. Never has the technological development been as fast as in the 19th century. If you wanted to know which new developments existed, there was one place to go: the World Exhibition. If you would like to know what was presented on the World Exhibition 1900, please watch the next video.